Well, the first heavyweight clash of the tournament didn't disappoint, did it? Spain 3, Croatia 0, and while that suggests a one-sided game, I actually don't think it was that at all. I think it's a much closer game than the result suggests. Even if you ignore the second half with the idea that Rodri wasn't sent off for denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity, bloke was about 3 yards out, open goal near enough, and Rodri cleans him out. I mean, if that's not a clear goal-scoring opportunity, I don't know what is. And the non-retake rule where encroachment is a foul, essentially, for Spain and Croatia don't get to retake their penalty kick. There was a lot of weirdness in that second half when it comes to officiating and the rules. I feel a little bit bad for the referees with the penalty, because if that's the rules, that's the rules. They kind of have to take the brunt for that. But, I mean, not sending Rodri off is mental, but regardless, that's a little bit of a tangent. Croatia had their chances to get forward and attack in the first half as well as Spain did. The difference is, I just think there's a big difference in quality in the attack for Spain and Croatia at this point. Croatia were doing their best to exploit the space that Spain left, couldn't finish it off and couldn't punish them for it. Spain could. Spain had clinical attackers that could get into great areas and put the chances away. But how did they come to do that? Well, thank you for asking. You didn't ask, probably, but I'm responding to you like you're an actual person talking to me anyway. We'll go on to how Spain won the game. So Spain would build up in their 2-3-2-3 shape that was slightly lopsided, as Pedri would stick narrow and central behind the striker, and it left Fabian Ruiz to attack the left half space in this area. Croatia would try and match it up man for man. You'd have Budimir taking care of the two centre-backs. He'd typically stick to the left side and trying to push the ball to Nacho Fernandez. You'd get Meyer here on Cucurella. You'd get Kramaric on Carvajal. Kovacic should push onto Rodri. Modric on Fabian Ruiz, which I'm going to come to in a second. Brozovic on Pedri. The fullbacks, as you'd expect, on the wingers with Stanisic on Nico Williams, Gvardiol on Yamal, and the two centre-backs occupying Alvaro Morata. Now, there's a couple ways this broke down for Croatia. One was because the wingers for Spain would typically like to drift inwards and push the back four in real narrow, which meant there was more space for Cucurella to attack down the flanks, dragging the wingers back and pushing them further back. Same with Carvajal on this side. They typically look to try and create the width on that side if the wingers weren't doing it, because they would like to come in and occupy this space. They try and get in between centre-back and full-back. So that left more space for the players here to get on the ball. And one was because Modric was tasked shadowing Fabian Ruiz while going to press Nacho Fernandez. The issue is because of the comfort that Spain have with retaining possession and how they get on the ball, is with Modric coming up to press onto Nacho Fernandez, he could take it out onto his left foot, and as Meyer came up to press Cucurella, this pass could happen with the pass out wide and then into Fabian Ruiz, which was pulled off time and time again. And as a result of Modric making that move to press, he'd leave Fabian Ruiz completely exposed. And Fabian Ruiz had a fantastic game in creating opportunities for the attacking players, but he was given all the time and space in the world to do so because of Modric making that jump. And when he was getting into this position here, running at the back four, then you'd see the likes of Morata running forward, you'd see Yamal making this run in here, you'd see Nico Williams trying to stretch the play. Pedri would even make forward runs. This was a Spain team that weren't just reliant on keeping possession with their small and short passing in those little areas, just trying to sort of pull an opponent's shape apart. They would be quicker, there would be a higher tempo to their attacking play, and they'd really attack the back four because they had the dynamic wingers that could do that. And Morata's movement in behind is fantastic as well. As much as his finishing can be left wanting, but he did his best with the finish he had, to be fair. He finished it really well. And Fabian Ruiz had opportunities like this time and time again that he created chances from. He scored a really good goal himself, and they didn't cope well with it. And they did adapt to it somewhat, Croatia. If I just mark up the wide players of the fullbacks again, is one of the two centre-backs, whether that's Pongracic or Sotalo, would jump to press Fabian Ruiz in this position, which would leave the sole centre-back isolated one-on-one with Morata, which created a complete 1v1 all over the pitch in this regard. And the centre-back wasn't shy about following him deep. So let's just say if Fabian Ruiz came into this area to collect the ball, which he would if Marc Cucurella would push onwards into this position, then he'd follow up and he'd be pressing along with the forwards, which, with the dynamic play that Spain attacked with, the fast-paced quality they had, meant that the run for Nico Williams to go in here was always on. Yamal as well, but Nico Williams in behind running threatens more because he's so quick off the mark. He's got that fantastic direct running ability, and with Spain's passes to find that in behind, he had a field day on that side. Equally as important in terms of Spain's direct dynamic play, Croatia just didn't have the athleticism to be able to cope with that running off the ball. Whether that was the quick play through the build-up or whether that was quick play through transition, because as we'll go on to, was with Croatia's attacking shape, they get the fullbacks forward in these areas. If I just quickly replicate that, Gvardiol and Stanisic pushed up here. On the transition, this meant Yamal could attack this space here, Morata in between the two, and Nico Williams on the outside. And they got one of their goals through that by the quick change of play, catching Croatia up the pitch and attack the space in behind. Croatia didn't really deal with that fast dynamic threat, whether they just thought Spain were going to resort to their patient build-up and didn't worry about the direct play. It's the only thing I can assume. But that front three really caused issues. They've just got such a different profile to what Spain usually have that can really hurt teams. It's almost like you can't go to press them now because they have that threat in behind, but you can't stand off of them because they'll just pass you to death. And they really got overloaded with the play of that front three, and the Modric leaving Fabian Ruiz exposed to create, and in the first half it carved them open in a 20-minute spell that lost Croatia the game. As I say, just leaving isolated defenders and a quality attack and play from Spain really did kill them off. But fair play to them, they did their job, Spain, and Croatia struggled. But how did Croatia attack, and how did they create chances of their own? We'll go on to it now. So Croatia would build up in a sort of 2-4-2-2, which would become a 2-5-3 and a 2-6-2 at points. So it would be about beating that Spain press, and Spain would look to press high, and it would be about Croatia baiting that onto him so they could then hit it direct and exploit the space in between defence and midfield. So Brozovic would drop in to collect the ball from the centre-backs. You'd have Modric coming into this area here, and then Kovacic would start coming a little bit deeper to join in, and in certain cases Meyer would also contribute to this deeper build-up play. And Spain, as I just said, would go complete 4-4-2 press. You'd get Morata going towards the centre-back on the ball, you'd get Pedri pushing onto Brozovic, you'd get Fabian Ruiz onto Modric, Rodri onto Kovacic, wing-back for wing-back, and you'd also get Spain's full-backs on the wide players, which would tuck in for Croatia. So let's just say Meyer and Kramaric coming into these central areas, you'd get Carvajal and Cucurella coming in narrow, and again, this was part of baiting the press onto Croatia in their deeper areas so that they could then hit long to either Budimir up front, who could knock the ball down for the two players in support for second ball opportunities, and Meyer and Kramaric, who could then create from there, or knock the ball down so they could then find the runners at wing back who would run off their market and try and exploit the space out wide. And there were times where they did try and create wing back to wing back in this scenario, but they just couldn't find that finishing touch to create a chance worthy of a goal. So the direct option was always there for Croatia. In trying to bait Spain's press onto him, you would see situations where Pedri would go and press the opposite centre-back. So let's say he'd move to this guy here. Then you'd maybe get Fabian jumping from Modric to Brozovic if he tried to jump into this deeper area. Williams would come in, which meant that Cucurella had to be left 2-on-1. Kovacic by this point would probably have come deeper, so he'll be here. Wing-back slightly deeper as well. So it left Spain really exposed in that in-between defence and midfield area. So let's just say if they could find this forward pass, these players had time and space in between the lines to create. And also, because Cucurella was almost at points tasked with two players, with Meyer coming inside or the overlapping run of Stanisic, he would try and press in between the two. And because he's got no real discipline, Cucurella, when he jumps into press one, it's relentless, but he leaves a space open for the opposition to play into. He's just a real lack of discipline at points, Cucurella. I know he had a better second half of the season, but I wouldn't want him at left back. I don't think you can trust him. And this was made even harder for Spain to manage because Kramaric on this side was given a bit of a free role to play. He wasn't really held down to a position. He would come inside and try and attack the middle of the pitch and try and find space to lay it off and hold it up, so then maybe you could get the forward runs of Modric to receive the ball back, of Kovacic off the blind side of their markers, who could then use their technical ability to create chances. And Spain gifted that space in between defence and midfield time and time again. Rodri would go to press, we wouldn't be sitting in front of the back four. And also in trying to bring the fullbacks narrow, they were sort of neither here nor there with staying out wide to form a back four or coming inside to press the men on the ball. So they did well with that game plan, Croatia. I rate the idea, and it almost worked out. I think tactically it worked out. They just didn't have their players at their maximum when it came to their chance creation in the game and didn't really impact it enough anyway. And when Croatia did force some back at points, this was the shape that Spain had. With the fullbacks overlapping, they'd almost be pushed back into a 5 as Nico Williams was tasked with coming into this area here and tracking the run of Stanisic. Whether Yamal was supposed to do that same thing, I don't know, but he didn't pull it off. He ended up forming sort of the midfield 4. And I guess Spain didn't want to concede that much men in midfield by losing Yamal. So at points, though, it did feel like Carvajal was caught in between Kramaric, in between Gvardiol, and whether to track either or. Just consistently caught in between two players. And again, Cucurella was at risk this side because of his erraticness and jumping to press from Meyer to Stanisic. So it was the wing-backs that Croatia were going to get their better chances from. And as much as Kramaric did a fantastic job of picking up space in between the line, he really lacked the quality when it came to it. So did Meyer when they would try and pick up these pockets either side of the Spain midfielders. And Budimir was a bit of a non-factor in the game as well. So it was just a bit of a disappointing performance on an individual level from Croatia. As much as they gave chances away in defence, I kind of rate the ballsiness of it. This wasn't like Scotland the other night where I felt like they got it completely wrong without even really trying to nullify a threat. I think Croatia did try and nullify a threat through complete risk with the intention that the reward would be worth it. But you only speak about that in a positive light when the risk is worth the reward. But when the risk doesn't result in the reward, you end up getting exposed and it can cost you big. But credit to Croatia, they still made it an entertaining game. Spain did well to win their game, but still have issues they need to sort out. They can't leave that space in between defence midfield again. Imagine Pellegrini, imagine Cristante, imagine Nico Barella finding those pockets. Davide Fratesi as well, and Scamacca the way they like to drop off. So Spain can't go into the Italy game with that same defensive discipline. They'll get ripped apart, which will make it a more entertaining game, but not good enough in that sense. But I'd love to know what you guys think. It was an entertaining match, and this tournament has so far given us some fantastic quality of football, and I can't wait to see it continue. Cheers, lads, for watching. In a bit.